Racist cops corner black woman. Her military dog took them down in seconds. You people think you can do whatever you want, huh? The voice was sharp, arrogant, echoing through the empty parking lot behind Benson's grocery. 4 white officers stood with their hands near their holsters, surrounding a single black woman and her dog. Ariana Cole stood tall next to her SUV, arms crossed, calm in a way that made the men uneasy. She was dressed in simple black cargo pants and a worn gray hoodie, her hair pulled back into a tight low bun. Her boots were scuffed, but her posture was composed, dangerous, like someone who'd been here before. The air crackled with tension. "You match the description," Deputy Wade Elkins barked, stepping forward. "Dark hoodie, suspicious behavior. We got a call." "A call from who?" Ariana asked. Her voice didn't waver. "Doesn't matter," he snapped. "You're resisting. Pop the trunk now." She didn't move. Ranger, the Belgian Malinois at her side, shifted slightly, his amber eyes locked on the deputy's hand. "You don't want to do this," Ariana said quietly, her eyes narrowing. "Not with him watching." "I said pop the damn trunk." Ranger emitted a low growl, barely audible but chilling. Another officer reached behind him for his baton. The moment stretched. The silence was louder than words. Then, the officer lunged, and everything went to hell. Ranger exploded into motion. In less than a second, he was airborne. His jaws clamped around the officer's wrist, twisting him mid-stride and sending him crashing to the asphalt. Another officer fumbled for his taser, but Ranger was already on him, pushing him to the ground, teeth bared but not biting, holding. Ariana didn't flinch. "Ranger, hold," she commanded. Instantly, the dog froze in place, ears alert, muscles tense but still. 2 cops on the ground, one moaning, one frozen. The other 2 hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. Elkins stepped back, his voice cracked. "What the hell kind of dog is that?" Ariana finally spoke, her voice low and cutting through the air like a knife. "A trained soldier, just like me." The silence after that was thunderous. Elkins stared at her, his face a mix of confusion and something else, panic, because deep down something about her words felt real. Ariana's phone buzzed. She picked it up slowly and spoke a single word. "Now." 2 minutes later, the wail of approaching vehicles sliced through the tension. A black SUV rolled into the parking lot, followed by a military Humvee. 4 armed personnel in tactical gear stepped out, led by a tall black man in fatigues. He walked straight up to Ariana and saluted. "Major Cole, are you all right, ma'am?" Elkins's face drained of color. He stumbled back as the truth dropped like a bomb. "She's a major," one of the cops whispered. "Like, military?" Ariana turned her eyes on them. Steady, controlled. Retired, but always on duty when it comes to justice. She walked over to Ranger and gently scratched behind his ears. The dog sat calmly, tail twitching, eyes scanning the perimeter. Elkins began to stammer. We didn't know." She didn't identify herself. "There was a report." "There was no report," the officer from the Humvee interrupted coldly. "We traced the 911 call. It came from a burner phone registered under a fake name, likely planted." Ariana finally turned to face him. "This isn't the first time, she said, "but I intend to make sure it's the last." She didn't shout. She didn't raise her voice, but every word hit like a hammer. And in that moment, every officer there realized they'd cornered the wrong woman. Rewind 1 week earlier. Ariana had only just arrived in Millstone. She'd taken leave from her base near Fort Benning and driven 3 hours north to settle into a quiet house left to her by an old family friend. She wasn't here for war. She was here to heal, to write, to breathe. But the town had different plans. The first encounter came at the grocery store. A woman, mid-40s, platinum blonde, wearing a pastel cardigan like a uniform, had shoved her cart in front of Ariana's and hissed, This line's taken. Ariana had simply stepped to another aisle. Later that day, the woman, Tracy Elkins, filed a complaint with store management, claiming Ariana had threatened her. The cameras said otherwise, but her husband was a deputy. From then on, Ariana noticed the patrol car parked across from her driveway, the slow drive-bys, the questions asked around town. One day, a drone hovered outside her back window. She didn't report it. She waited. She trained Ranger harder, reinforced commands, tested reactions, polished the leash clip and checked the custom harness. She didn't hide, but she didn't fight. Not yet. Back in the present, the officer from the Humvee approached Elkins. "We've informed Internal Affairs and the county sheriff. You and your team are to stand down, pending review." "You can't do this," Elkins snapped. "We were just doing our job." "No, you were abusing your badge," Ariana said, stepping forward. "And you're lucky this dog's more disciplined than you are." As the officers were escorted away, Ranger walked calmly beside Ariana, tail lifted high. People were gathering now, onlookers, phones raised, recording. One teenage girl whispered, "She's a soldier. With a war dog?" The rumor would spread fast. Ariana didn't care. She looked to the sky, sunlight cutting through the clouds, and whispered just loud enough for Ranger to hear. "This town's about to learn what justice looks like." And Ranger, her partner, her weapon, her shield, sat tall beside her, waiting for what came next. The next morning, Ariana Cole sat in her kitchen, staring at a lukewarm cup of coffee. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the table where a folder lay open. Crisp documents, photographs, and a list of names. At her feet, Ranger lay completely still, but his ears twitched slightly at every distant sound, attuned to her tension. She reached down absently and scratched the back of his neck. "We're not done here, boy," she murmured. "Not even close." Outside, the town of Millstone bustled like nothing had happened. No one talked about the two officers who were taken away in military vehicles. No one mentioned the girl with the phone recording who mysteriously deleted her footage overnight. Everything had been smoothed over too fast, too cleanly. That's what bothered Ariana most. She'd been in combat zones where chaos made sense, where the rules were raw and obvious. Here in Millstone, the danger wore a smile. It hid behind country music and sweet tea and the occasional "bless your heart." It was quieter, but deadlier. She tapped a photo on the table, a screenshot of Tracy Elkins laughing beside her husband Wade at the county fair. They were tangled into every part of the town: sheriff's fundraisers, church bake sales, school board committees. And someone had erased the 911 report from the previous day's incident. She'd checked herself. There was no trace of a call made, no recording, no dispatcher log. That wasn't incompetence. That was power. Ranger lifted his head, his ears sharpened. Seconds later, a knock came at the door. 3 precise taps. Ariana stood slowly. Her movements were careful, measured. She didn't flinch. Opening the door revealed a tall woman with brown curls, mid-30s, wearing a worn blazer and faded jeans. Her eyes flickered with something more than curiosity. It was recognition. "You must be Ariana," she said. "Name's Camille Boyd. I'm with the Southern Justice Review." "Never heard of it," Ariana said flatly. "It's independent, small. But we cover civil rights cases, especially ones the big outlets won't touch." "Not interested in publicity," Camille tilted her head. "Then maybe you're interested in justice. I've been in this town 3 months undercover, and I think you just walked into the middle of something bigger than you realize." Ariana's jaw tightened. She opened the door wider. "Talk." Inside, over coffee, Ariana finally reheated. Camille laid it out. Her team had been tracking a cluster of cases in small southern towns. Towns where black families faced harassment, mysterious firings, property seizures, and sudden arrests, all of it buried under bureaucracy and insufficient evidence. "And Millstone?" Ariana asked. "Top of the list," Camille replied. "Elkins is the tip of the iceberg. There's a pattern of intimidation, false reports, even surveillance. And when someone fights back, they vanish." Camille nodded grimly. "We had a teacher last year, lived on Maple Street, complained after her car was towed from her own driveway. 3 weeks later, she was fired for poor classroom performance. Then evicted. No court records. Nothing." Ariana leaned back. Her mind worked fast, combat instincts applying themselves to a new battlefield. "I need names, faces, timelines." Camille slid over a USB drive. "Everything we have. I wasn't sure what to do with it, but after yesterday, let's just say your dog made quite the impression." Ranger let out a small huff, as if unimpressed. Ariana managed a faint smile, then she leaned in. "What if I told you I didn't come here by accident?" Camille blinked. "You mean you knew?" "I had suspicions," Ariana said. "There have been murmurs about towns like this. People abused by the system because they had no one to stand for them. I had the clearance, the connections. I retired early so I could stop being part of the machine and start dismantling it where it was rotten." Camille's eyes widened. "So you're not just a soldier. I'm a strategist." Before Camille could respond, Ranger sprang up. Ariana was already moving, grabbing her phone and switching to the external security cam. On screen, a dark sedan parked across the street, tinted windows, no plates. She cursed under her breath. "They're watching," Camille said. "They're escalating," Ariana corrected. She walked to the closet and pulled out a locked case. Inside, a compact drone, 2 encrypted phones, and a small body cam disguised as a button. Camille stared. "You were really prepared for this, huh?" "I didn't come here to blend in. I came here to smoke them out." She handed Camille the button cam. "You're going to the town council meeting tonight. They'll pretend it's routine, but they'll be watching who shows up, who speaks, who doesn't. You'll be my eyes." "What about you?" "I've got a different meeting." That night, Ariana dressed down. Jeans, flannel, no makeup. She parked her car 3 blocks from the sheriff's office and approached on foot with Ranger beside her. The building was quiet, too quiet for a Friday evening, but one back window glowed. She crouched near the alley and pulled out a listening device. The tech was old, but it still worked. Inside, she could hear voices. "Elkins is suspended, sure," one man said, "but that woman's a problem. That dog's military, and that journalist, Camille Boyd, she's been sniffing around." "Then we need to make them disappear," another voice said coldly. "Do it clean, like last time." Ariana's blood went cold. This wasn't petty abuse of power. This was organized. She tapped a button and began recording. Ranger pressed in closer, silent and ready. Suddenly, the back door creaked open. Ariana turned, heart pounding. A young officer stepped out, barely more than a kid. But his face froze when he saw her. She didn't move. He glanced at her, then at Ranger, then back. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "Neither should you." He hesitated. His hand hovered over his weapon. Then, in a move that stunned Ariana, he dropped it, hands up. "I didn't sign up for this," he said. "They told me we were helping the community, but they're hiding things, hurting people." Ariana stared at him. "Then help me expose it. I'll get you everything. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "When this blows up, protect my family." She nodded once. "You have my word." Back at home, Ariana uploaded the audio and cross-checked Camille's files. The puzzle was becoming a map, one she could finally navigate. Her phone buzzed. A new text, unknown number. It read, "You made a mistake coming here, Major. This town isn't yours to fix. Leave, or we'll fix it for you." She stared at the message, then at Ranger. "We're staying." The dog blinked once, then rested his head on her foot. The game had changed. Now it was war. Rain had begun to fall by midnight, a slow, rhythmic drizzle that coated the streets of Millstone in silver. But Ariana Cole wasn't asleep. She was in her garage with Ranger at her side, hunched over a digital map on her laptop, the glow of the screen casting hard shadows across her face. Every pin she dropped on the map connected to a name from Camille's files. Victims, whistleblowers, families displaced with no legal cause. The pattern was no longer just suspicious. It was deliberate, controlled, strategic, like a military operation. She leaned back, hands running through her short, tight curls, then looked down at Ranger, who sat poised, alert, never straying far. "You see it, don't you?" she whispered. "They've been cleaning house." She zoomed in on a cluster of evictions and false arrests that all occurred within a 10-block radius over the past 2 years. Always the same officers involved, always the same judge signing off the paperwork, and always the same real estate company scooping up the properties for dirt-cheap prices days later. A knock startled her. This time it was soft, hesitant. She approached the front door with caution, gun tucked discreetly behind her waistband. Standing there was a teenage girl in a drenched hoodie, her eyes wide with fear. She looked barely 16. "Ms. Cole?" the girl asked. "Yes?" "They told me not to come here, but I didn't know where else to go." "Who told you?" "My uncle. He's one of them." Ariana stiffened. "One of who?" The girl swallowed hard. "The cops. He's with Deputy Barnes. He said you're in danger." Ariana stepped aside. "Come in." The girl hesitated, then bolted through the door. Ranger sniffed her briefly and, satisfied, padded back to his spot by the window. Inside, Ariana gave her a towel and something warm to drink. "What's your name?" "Zariah. Miller." "All right, Zariah. Tell me everything." The girl's hands trembled as she gripped the mug. She looked down at it, avoiding Ariana's eyes. "My uncle's been weird since I came to live with him last year, always locking his office, whispering on the phone. But yesterday, after that thing with you and the dog, he came home freaked out, said things were about to get messy." "What did he say exactly?" "He said you embarrassed the wrong people, that they were going to make an example of you." Ariana frowned. "Did he say when?" Zariah nodded. "Tonight. He said it would look like a break-in. Said they were going to clean up loose ends. That's what he called it." Ariana's blood ran cold. It wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. She grabbed her phone and fired off a message to Camille. "Evacuate, now. Full blackout. We're exposed." Zariah looked up, eyes pleading. "You're not going to let them get away with this, right?" Ariana reached for her shoulder bag and pulled out a device that looked like an old key fob. With a flick, the entire house's interior lighting shifted to red emergency mode. "No, I'm going to stop them." At 2:14 a.m., a black SUV turned off its headlights a block away and coasted quietly down the street. Inside, 3 men dressed in tactical gear loaded non-lethal weapons and plastic cuffs. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here to disappear someone. Inside the house, Ariana had killed all main power except security. The windows were locked down with magnetic bars she'd installed the day she moved in, just in case. She stood in the center of the living room, motionless, holding Ranger by his collar. The dog's muscles were taut, every sense sharpened. She whispered, 3, 2, 1. A crash echoed at the back of the house. A second later, the front door burst open. Ariana released Ranger. What followed wasn't chaos, it was precision. Ranger moved like a missile, straight for the first intruder, who never even got a word out before the dog slammed into his chest, knocking him flat. Screams followed as the other 2 tried to pivot, but Ariana had already moved. She stepped behind the couch, drew her sidearm, and fired a warning shot into the floor. "Face down!" Hands out, now! The second man lunged toward his belt. Ranger was faster. With a snarl that chilled the blood, the dog ripped into the man's forearm, sending his weapon skittering across the hardwood. The third man froze, hands trembling. I didn't sign up for this, he said. Ariana pointed the gun straight at him. No one ever thinks they do. She zip-tied them herself, then removed their masks. And there, staring up at her, bloodied and groaning, was Deputy Curtis Barnes. Ariana's voice was like ice. Should have stayed retired, huh? Barnes tried to speak, but she pressed a boot to his chest. Talk, he coughed. You're dead, Cole. This goes way beyond Millstone. Oh, I know, she replied. I just made it personal. Before dawn, Camille arrived in a borrowed car, stunned at the scene. You just took down a 3-man team. No, Ariana said. Ranger did. Soraya came out of the kitchen, her eyes tired but proud. Are we safe now? Ariana paused. No, but we're ahead, and sometimes that's enough. She turned to Camille. I want you to leak the footage of the break-in, but only parts of it. Blur faces, drop hints, let them know we see them. Camille frowned. Won't that make them angrier? Yes, Ariana said. That's the point. She handed Camille a flash drive. I need this in 3 hands by tomorrow morning. The FBI, a trusted journalist in D.C., and someone I used to know at the Pentagon. What's on it? Proof. Names. Dates. Financial trails. Enough to make people in Millstone very uncomfortable. Outside, dawn was beginning to break, but it brought no comfort, because Ariana knew the rules had changed. They wouldn't send low-level thugs next time. They'd send the suits. And when they came, they'd try to bury her. She looked down at Ranger, who was licking blood from his paw, calm as ever. We're not done, boy, she said softly. Ranger thumped his tail once. It was far from over. But for the first time, Ariana Cole had the upper hand. It was still early morning when Ariana parked outside a worn-down church on the outskirts of Millstone. The red brick building stood as a relic of another time, its cracked bell tower reaching toward a sky thick with low clouds. A faded banner above the entrance read, Mount Zion Community Center. All are welcome. Camille sat beside her, chewing the edge of her nail. You sure about this? She asked. Ariana nodded. He owes me, and he knows how to survive in the shadows. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and incense. Rows of pews were empty, save for a man hunched over near the altar, mopping the floor. Jacob, Ariana called out. He turned, a tall black man in his 50s, with salt and pepper dreadlocks tucked beneath a navy beanie. His eyes narrowed when he saw her. Well, well, he said, voice like gravel. Look what the storm blew in. I need a favor. Jacob tossed the mop into a bucket and leaned against the handle. You always do. She walked toward him, removing her hoodie. This one's not for me. He studied her for a beat, then motioned toward a back room. Once inside, behind closed doors, Ariana laid everything on the table. The footage of the break-in, the names from the flash drive, the corruption web tying the Millstone Sheriff's Department to Horizon Equity, a private real estate firm with federal connections. Jacob whistled. Damn. They really didn't want you talking. They've been flipping families out of their homes, falsifying charges, making it look like bad luck. And you think this goes federal? I know it does. He crossed his arms. You still got that clearance? Technically, I'm inactive, but my name still opens doors, Camille chimed in. We're building a case, but we need help. Places to hide, eyes on the ground. If you know people... Jacob cut her off. I do. But this kind of war doesn't stay clean. Ariana met his gaze. It's never been clean. He nodded, then opened a drawer and handed her a key. What's this? Safe house. East End. No one touches it but me. Use it as long as you need. She squeezed his hand. Thank you. Jacob looked at her and said softly, "You always fought smarter than the rest of us, Ari, but be careful. They're not just cops. Not anymore." Later that day, back at the safe house, Ariana set up a corkboard across the living room wall. Pins, string, photos, receipts, court documents. It was beginning to look like a war map. Camille organized the files by category. Zarya monitored news feeds and police scanners. Ranger lay on the floor by the door, ears flicking every few seconds. Camille turned. "We need more witnesses, someone who can go on the record." "There is one," Ariana said, "but she'll never talk unless I show up in person." "Who?" "Judge Eleanor Pike." Camille blinked. "You mean the same judge who's been rubber-stamping all these evictions?" "She's been playing both sides for years. She used to be a reformer. Something changed." "Then why would she help us?" "Because I saved her son's life in Fallujah." That night, Ariana dressed in plain clothes, braided her hair tightly, and holstered her weapon under a denim jacket. Ranger would stay behind for this one. She didn't want to risk it if things went sideways. The courthouse parking lot was mostly empty when she pulled in. Judge Pike's car was parked in her reserved spot. Ariana entered through the side door using an old contractor badge that still scanned green. She found Eleanor Pike in her chambers, sipping tea, glasses perched low on her nose. When she looked up, her hand froze mid-air. "Ariana Cole, I thought you were dead." Ariana stepped forward. "Not yet." Eleanor stood, slow and cautious. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. Not with blood on your hands." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "You think I enjoy this? That I wanted to be part of this machine? I think you stopped caring." The judge looked away. "They threatened my family. They said my son would be next. You know what they're capable of." "Yes, that's why I'm coming for them." Eleanor hesitated, then sat down heavily. "What do you want? Testify or leak a statement, anything to prove you were coerced." "They'll destroy me." "They already have." For a moment, neither woman spoke. Finally, Eleanor reached into a locked drawer and pulled out a worn folder. "This has copies of memos, emails, orders I was forced to sign. I've kept records just in case. I always thought someone like you would come back." Ariana took it, heart pounding. "Thank you." Eleanor stood again, eyes glassy. "You better finish this, Cole. Don't leave it halfway." "I don't leave things undone." As Ariana turned to leave, Eleanor added, "They'll send someone for me when they realize I helped you. Just make sure it wasn't for nothing." Ariana paused at the door. "It won't be." At the safe house, Camille skimmed the documents with a stunned expression. "This is it. This is the smoking gun." Ariana nodded. "Then we leak it, but slow. Strategic." Zarya rushed in with a tablet. "You guys need to see this." On the screen was a breaking news segment. 3 deputies suspended after leaked body cam footage shows them forcibly entering a civilian home without a warrant. It was the clip Camille had leaked days earlier. "They're rattled," Ariana said. "Perfect." But just then, Camille's phone buzzed. She picked it up and froze. "What is it?" Ariana asked. Camille's voice was flat. "Jacob's place. It's gone. Fire. Whole blocks sealed." Ariana felt a cold knot form in her gut. They're sending a message. And it was clear now. This wasn't just about Millstone anymore. They were at war. And it was time the country saw it. The smoke hadn't even cleared from the ruins of Jacob's safe house when Ariana stood in front of it, her fists clenched at her sides. Charred brick, burnt beams, a twisted metal sign that used to read Mount Zion. Ranger growled low beside her. The big dog hadn't stopped pacing since they'd arrived. His hackles were up, nose twitching at the soot. Camille stepped next to her, eyes wide with grief. They didn't just burn it down, they made sure it looked like a warning. "They didn't expect we'd show up this fast," Ariana muttered. "They probably thought we'd back off." Ariana turned. Then they don't know who we are. Camille nodded slowly, but her voice cracked when she added, Jacob was the last link to this side of town. He held people together. They took that from us. No, Ariana said. They tried. Now we remind them who they're dealing with. She pulled out her phone and hit a contact labeled Commander Riley, Fort Warner. It rang once. A voice answered. Cole? I need access. Riley didn't hesitate. You've been off-grid, and now I'm back. 3 hours later, Ariana and Camille drove through the secured gates of Fort Warner. A military police officer saluted as they passed, and Ariana returned it without a word. Camille looked around in awe. Is this where you trained? No, Ariana replied. This is where I became dangerous. Inside the command center, Ariana met with a select group of former operatives and intelligence analysts. Men and women she'd once trained beside, trusted with her life. Riley, a lean white man with graying temples, clasped her shoulder tightly. You never show up unless it's about to get messy. It's already messy, she replied. I need your comms team, and I need to borrow one of the deep ops rooms. He gestured her through. Go to war, then. Inside the ops room, screens lined the walls. Camille's hands shook slightly as she sat at the console, logging into secured feeds. Zaraya's voice came through the encrypted call line. We've got movement. The sheriff's department is bringing in private contractors. Ariana narrowed her eyes. They're escalating. More than that, Zaraya continued. They're clearing people out of South Ridge by force. Evictions, no warrants. 2 schools already closed. They're trying to smoke out every witness. Ariana looked at Camille. Pull up Horizon Equity's database. What are we looking for? Their movement pattern, where they'll strike next. Within minutes, Camille had a heat map up. Property seizures were clustering in low-income black neighborhoods. A pattern emerged. Block-by-block displacement, masked under legal jargon and false charges. They're creating a vacuum, Ariana said, making it look like the community left by choice. Which means we've got hours before they hit the West End. She stood. We're not going to let that happen. That night, under the cover of darkness, Ariana drove alone into South Ridge. Ranger sat in the back seat, calm but alert. She wore tactical gear, a bulletproof vest under her jacket. She wasn't just investigating anymore. She was intercepting. 3 black SUVs were already parked on Lincoln Street, headlights off. She parked down the block, slipped out quietly, and signaled Ranger to heel. They crept through alleyways until Ariana spotted the contractors. 6 men, fully armed, dragging families out of a duplex at gunpoint. A mother screamed as one of them shoved her teenage son against the hood of a car. Ariana raised her voice. You've got 5 seconds to back off. The men turned, startled. Who the hell are you? One snapped. I'm the nightmare your boss forgot to plan for. They moved toward her, cocky, guns still raised. Ariana tapped her thigh. Ranger. In one fluid motion, the massive Belgian Malinois lunged. He took down the first man with terrifying precision, sending him crashing to the pavement. Screams broke out. Ariana disarmed another with a precise elbow strike and spin kick, then used his own taser to knock him cold. The remaining 2 bolted. Families poured out of their homes, confused but rallying. Camille's voice came through Ariana's earpiece. Local news is picking this up. We leaked the audio. You're live. Ariana grabbed one of the men still groaning on the sidewalk. Tell them we're not scared. And tell your boss I'm not alone. She looked around at the growing crowd. Phones were out. People were filming. For the first time, the city saw not just a woman fighting back, but a community waking up. Back at the command center, Camille was stitching together the footage into a timeline. Zaraya was contacting local lawyers and rights groups. Judge Pike had gone silent, but Ariana knew that silence meant she was preparing something big. When Ariana returned, bruised but unshaken, Riley pulled her aside. I've got bad news, She braced herself. Your name hit a federal alert list. They're flagging you as an agitator. Some DC office just gave the green light for surveillance. Ariana exhaled, jaw tight. So it's official. They're coming. Riley paused, then slid her a sealed envelope. You're going to want to read this. She opened it. Inside was a classified report, signed orders. Horizon Equity had secured a covert deal with Homeland Security to run urban renewal ops in distressed areas with full immunity. She looked up. This is what we needed. Riley nodded. But it also means you've got about 2 days before they scrub the files and vanish. Ariana turned to Camille and Zoraya. We go public. We bring the full story. Everything. No more shadows. Zoraya leaned forward. We better be ready. Ariana looked at Ranger, then out the window toward the sleeping city. We were born ready. It started with a glitch. Camille was halfway through editing the footage from Lincoln Street when the feed froze. Static hissed across the screen for a second before it went black. Then the screen flickered and a new file appeared on her desktop. She didn't download it. Her heart pounded as she clicked. A live camera feed opened, grainy, low light, time-stamped 5 minutes earlier. The image showed a man in a dark hoodie slipping into an underground parking garage. Behind him, 2 figures followed silently. One of them had a badge clipped to his belt. Riley, Camille whispered, her throat dry. He was being followed. She scrambled for her headset and punched into the encrypted channel. Ariana, we've got a problem. Someone's following Riley. I think he's compromised. Ariana, already suiting up for a field interview with Channel 9, stopped mid-step. How recent? 5 minutes. Feed came through our server like someone wanted us to see it. Ariana's stomach turned. This wasn't just surveillance. It was a message. I'm going after him. Zoraya, listening in, cut in. You sure that's not bait? They could be luring you out. Then I'll bite. The underground parking lot beneath the courthouse was dead silent. Ariana moved in low and fast, Ranger at her side. The red glow of exit lights bounced off the cement columns, casting long shadows across the floor. She didn't call out for Riley. If he was here, he'd know to stay hidden. But it was too quiet. Then she saw it. A black SUV, back door hanging open, the driver's side window shattered, a smudge of blood on the steering wheel, and Riley's ID badge tossed on the ground like trash. She dropped beside it, inspecting the floor. Faint boot marks. Someone had been dragged toward the far stairwell. A sudden clang echoed behind her. She spun. Too late. A heavy baton came down across her back. She grunted in pain, rolled to the side, and came up swinging. Her fist connected with a masked man's jaw. Ranger launched forward, tackling another, sending both sprawling into a concrete pillar. A third assailant came from the shadows, gun raised. Ariana dove behind the SUV as bullets tore through the windshield. Glass exploded around her. She rolled, reached for her boot holster, and fired once. The man screamed, clutching his leg. She didn't wait. She moved in, disarmed him, and pressed her knee into his chest. "Who sent you?" He spit blood and laughed. "Doesn't matter. You're too late." She froze. "Where's Riley?" He coughed. "Already on his way to Fort Delta. You know what that means?" Her pulse dropped. Fort Delta was a black site, off the books. No records, no rights. If Riley was taken there, they weren't just planning to silence him. They were planning to erase him. She leaned in closer. "You just made a huge mistake." Then she knocked him out cold. Back at the command center, Camille pulled up everything she could on Fort Delta. It wasn't even marked on the official military grid. But Ariana knew it existed. She'd helped shut it down 5 years ago, or so she thought. Zoraya ran a facial match on the masked men Ariana had taken down. One result came back flagged. A former CIA paramilitary operative listed MIA. Camille's hands trembled. They're using ghost assets. They're rebuilding the program, Ariana muttered. Private contracts, off-grid operations, weaponizing cities like ours for test runs. She paced the room, adrenaline burning through her. They're not just targeting black neighborhoods, they're experimenting with domestic control. Camille looked at her. Then this isn't just about the sheriff's department anymore. No, Ariana said. It never was. An hour later, the team gathered in the back room of an old community church. Camille had converted the chapel into a live stream hub. Cables ran across pews. Microphones, lights, and cameras were ready. Ariana stood in front of the altar, lit by a single overhead beam. "We're live in 10, Camille called. Ariana looked at herself in the monitor. Her face was bruised, her hair damp from sweat, but her voice was steady. "Say what you came to say," Camille whispered. When the feed went live, Ariana stared directly into the camera. "My name is Ariana Cole. I served this country. I bled for it. I trained dogs that saved lives in combat zones. I believed in the system." She paused. "But I've seen what happens when systems turn on their own people, when justice is a costume, when truth is erased. Today they took one of ours. Commander Riley is missing, likely held at an off-grid facility where no citizen has rights. Why? Because he tried to help expose a network that profits from destroying black communities." The stream lit up with thousands of viewers. Comments poured in. Ariana continued. "They thought we'd stay quiet. They were wrong. We have the files, the footage, the faces. And if you're watching this, you're part of it now. Not the problem. The movement." She leaned forward. "We will bring them down, not with fear, but with truth." She nodded, and Camille cut the feed. Silence fell. Then the notifications exploded. Donations, retweets. Dozens of local journalists reached out. Activists rallied in South Ridge. Anonymous dropped encrypted tips. But then came the twist. Camille's screen pinged. A new email, no sender. Just an attachment. She clicked. A photo filled the screen. Riley. Alive. Bruised but standing, and beside him, grinning in defiance, was a woman Ariana hadn't seen in years. Major Eliza Warner. She had disappeared 3 years ago after testifying against a Pentagon contractor. Camille's voice cracked. "She's back." Zariah stared. "And she's working with Riley." "No," Ariana said, smiling. "She's rescuing him." Camille turned to her. "You planned this?" Ariana shook her head. "I had faith. The ones they cast out, they come back stronger." Outside, the sound of car horns, chanting, and movement built. The people weren't just watching anymore. They were coming. Rain hammered the roof of the old warehouse as the team stared at the encrypted photo of Riley and Major Eliza Warner. The room was still. The only sound was the soft whir of Camille's hard drives, processing facial recognition, location data, and signal timestamps. Ariana couldn't look away from the image. "He's alive," she whispered, "and she's with him." Zariah narrowed her eyes at the background of the photo. "That gate behind them, I've seen that design. It's the old decommissioned freight tunnel beneath Ridgeport Army Depot. I thought it was sealed years ago." Camille pulled it up on satellite. It was. Until 2 weeks ago, someone pulled a city permit under a fake construction company and started doing work in that area. They've been prepping it. "For what?" Ariana asked. Zariah looked up. "For extraction. They're not keeping Riley at Fort Delta. They're moving him out of the country." Ariana's heart dropped. "When?" "Soon. The transport is happening tonight." Silence. Then Ariana stood. "Then we don't have time." The Ridgeport Army Depot was a skeleton of its Cold War past, overgrown, fenced off, forgotten. But beneath it, tunnels that ran for miles, once used to move nuclear components discreetly through the Midwest. Now, a perfect black site, Ariana, Zariah. Camille and Ranger moved fast through the undergrowth, dressed in tactical black. Camille carried the portable command unit. Zariah had schematics. Ariana had a Glock, a flare, and Ranger's leash clipped to her belt. They bypassed motion sensors and crawled through a vent shaft until they reached a metal service door. Zariah tapped the lock panel with a hacking key and nodded. 2 minutes. Then we move. Ariana glanced back at Camille. Stay on the comms. If I say go live, you launch the full drop. Camille nodded. Got it, but, Ariana, be careful, we only get one shot at this. The door clicked open. Darkness swallowed them. The tunnel smelled like rust, diesel, and dust. Echoes bounced down the hall, too distorted to track. Ranger sniffed the air and growled low. Movement ahead, Ariana said. Suddenly, floodlights blasted on. On your knees, hands behind your head. Dozens of armed guards emerged from the shadows, semi-autos raised. Ariana raised her hands slowly but didn't kneel. Zariah did the same. Ranger stood at attention, tense and ready. Then a familiar voice echoed from the far side. Stand down. Major Warner stepped into the light, holding a pistol and wearing a military coat with no insignia. The guards hesitated. She's not your enemy, Warner barked. I'm the ranking officer here, and if anyone takes a shot, they answer to a court-martial. The tension broke like glass. Several guards slowly lowered their weapons. One of them, a younger man with a nervous twitch, said, We were told to shoot intruders on sight. And I'm telling you, Warner said, they're not intruders. They're the reason we're getting out of here alive. Minutes later, inside a makeshift operations room, Riley stood, bruised but alive, sipping water. You look like hell, Ariana said. Riley grinned weakly. You should see the other guy. Major Warner leaned against a metal table, arms crossed. They used me, Ariana. After I testified, they fake-killed me and pulled me into a ghost project called Echo Rift. My choice was to vanish or be erased for real. I've been undercover ever since. Ariana stared at her. You could have told me. They monitored everything. I couldn't risk your life. But when they took Riley, I knew the game changed. Zariah jumped in. So what's the plan? They're moving him out tonight, right? Warner corrected. I changed the manifest. They're expecting a cargo drone, but I sent it off course. Bought us 30 minutes. Ariana looked at Camille through the monitor. Get the file ready. We're going live in 15. But Camille didn't answer. Her screen flickered, then cut out. No signal, Zariah said, checking her uplink. She's been cut. Suddenly, alarms blared. Warner's eyes snapped to the tunnel. They're breaching the other side. Someone tipped them off. Ariana spun to Riley. Can you walk? I can run. Then move. They ran down the secondary tunnel. Lights burst above them, flashing red. Shouting and bootsteps closed in from behind. Ahead, they reached the train loading platform. Parked on the rail was a flatbed vehicle rigged with satellite gear. Get on, Warner shouted. As the vehicle started to move, a figure stepped from the side corridor. Sheriff Danvers. Face calm, hands behind his back, like he'd been waiting all along. You think this ends with a live stream, he said calmly. You think people care about facts? They care about fear, and I own that currency. Ariana didn't flinch. Not anymore. Danvers pulled a remote from his pocket. I blow this tunnel, no one walks out. Warner raised her gun. You won't make it out either. Danvers smiled. That's the beauty of it. Ranger growled beside Ariana, but before Danvers could press the button, the power grid surged, lights flickered. Then all the screens on the walls blinked to life. Camille's voice came through, steady and furious. You want fear? Let's talk about yours. One by one, footage played. Body cam clips, financial records, surveillance of Danvers meeting with private military contractors, evidence of abuse, Racketeering, illegal raids, planted drugs. The guards behind Danvers froze. "You want to blow this tunnel, Sheriff?" Camille's voice asked. "Then you better do it quick, because the whole country is watching." Danvers looked around. The red dot of a sniper laser appeared on his chest. He dropped the remote. The guards lowered their weapons, and Riley, breathless, said, "Now that's how you cut the head off a snake." Ariana looked at Warner. "We're not done yet." She turned to Ranger. "Let's go finish this." Rain washed the blood and dust off Ariana's boots as she stood outside the federal courthouse, the morning sun rising behind the steps. News vans lined the block. Reporters buzzed around, their lenses trained on the marble facade. Inside, Sheriff Danvers sat handcuffed at the defense table, his eyes hollow. Gone was the smugness, the cold authority. In its place, only silence and shame. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Ariana sat beside Riley, who was in uniform now, his name cleared and his rank reinstated. On his chest, the silver star gleamed, not for the battle that nearly killed him, but for surviving the system that tried to bury him. Judge Monroe looked over the rim of his glasses. "Sheriff Daniel T. Danvers, you have been found guilty of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, unlawful surveillance, unlawful detention, and abuse of power under the color of law. The sentence of this court is as follows." Ariana reached for Riley's hand and squeezed it. Ranger lay by her feet, calm but alert. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Gasps filled the courtroom. Some cheered softly, others wept. Danvers didn't move. He stared blankly ahead, his power shattered in a single morning broadcast that Camille had detonated across every screen in the country. What he thought would bury his enemies had become his own undoing. Outside, the crowd erupted into applause as Danvers was led away. Protesters who once feared retaliation now stood tall, holding up signs. "Truth matters. We saw it all, and justice isn't optional." Ariana stepped down the courthouse steps and was immediately met by a swarm of cameras and microphones. "Miss James, how did you manage to gather the evidence? What's next for you and Riley? What would you say to the millions watching you now?" Ariana raised a hand, signaling for silence. She looked straight into the main camera. "For too long, people like Danvers believed they could abuse their power and rewrite the truth. But they forgot the one thing they couldn't control. Us. The people. The witnesses. The voices that won't be silenced anymore." She turned to Riley and smiled before looking back. This fight was never just about one man. It's about all of us, standing up when it's hardest, believing in each other when it matters most, and protecting the truth when it's under attack. I didn't win this alone. I had backup. She looked down at Ranger, who perked his ears proudly and added, "And sometimes your backup has 4 legs and a bite stronger than your fear." The crowd laughed, tension melting into admiration. She continued, "If you've ever felt powerless, like no one's listening, I want you to know, your voice can shake the ground, your story matters, and if you don't tell it, someone else might try to erase it." The camera zoomed in. "And if this story moved you, if you believe in justice, in truth, in people rising when they're pushed down, then share this story. Subscribe to the channel. Help us shine a light where others want to keep us in the dark." Riley stepped forward, lifting a hand in salute to the crowd. Camille's voice buzzed in Ariana's earpiece, teasing, "You two are trending again. You're either going to be heroes or trouble magnets forever." Zoraya's voice came next, dry and amused. "I vote both." Later that night, Ariana sat on her apartment's rooftop, overlooking Ridgeport's skyline. Riley strummed a quiet melody on his guitar beside her. Ranger lay curled between them. Lights from the city blinked like stars. "You know," Ariana said, her voice soft, "when this all started, I thought I was just saving a dog." Riley looked at her. "You did more than that," she smiled. Turns out the dog saved me too. They sat in silence. Then, from her phone, Camille's face appeared. We've got emails flooding in. Stories, testimonies, people who've been silenced for years. They're ready to speak up. Ariana nodded. Then we listen. And just like that, the mission wasn't over. It was only beginning. If you felt something reading this, if you saw a piece of yourself or someone you love in this story, don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel, share this story, and stand with those who dare to speak the truth when it's easiest to stay silent. Your voice has power. Let's use it together.